In the beginning of the story, we see a man completely covered in blood, surrounded by dying men. He fiercely shouted that he doesn't care what people call him and that he will make sure that he is the one to kill his father. School begins. A fat bully is shouting at a student to tell him the lunch menu and calls him annoying. He is pissed and asks his companion to bring the loser to the store later. His intentions were to snatch all the money from him. But since he was from a poor family, his companion whether he would have any money on him. The fat bully replies that the poor families invest and spoil their children the most, and since his family income is up or low, he can rip him off of that money as well, and they all start laughing loudly. Suddenly a man walks up to them. The fat bully looks back, but to his surprise, he gets stabbed on his eye with a pen and falls onto 3 floor covered with blood. After this commotion, the man is taken to the staff office where the teacher asks him what he did all that even after always studying for the past 3 years. And since he was not even the victim of the bully, the teacher asks for the reason behind his actions. After being white for a willer, the man replies that they were simply being too loud. This man was none other than the main character of the story, Kong Pildu. Rumors spread fast. The students started to learn about the commotion Pildu created. He was soon given a nickname, Psychopath Kong Pildu. Pildu, however, was determined to not care what the others call him, and he will do whatever it requires for him to survive. Years pass by. He has successfully become a prosecutor. A fellow staff asks him to come attend the meeting. The meeting starts with Pildu's presentation on SONHWA Group's rapid growth. They run a loan lending business and accumulated 500 billion won in revenue. To this news, the chairman of his company replies that he doesn't see a problem here. Pildu continues. He adds that SONHWA company is no ordinary company. They have absorbed the nation's gangs to expand their influence and power. As they grow, the number of crimes increase with them. They regularly physically assault or blackmail those who come in the way of their business. They don't hesitate to murder either. The reason they can stay safe even after committing these crimes is because the presidential candidate Kong Ildo is helping them out. He's technically the owner of the SONHWA group. After hearing this, the chairman declared that the meeting was over. He asked Pildu to stay since he has something to talk about. Due to the amount of hard work put in by Pildu, the chairman thought he was overworking himself for the promotions, but to his surprise he denied. Chairman was surprised. He asked him whether it was an obsession. Pildu replies that it was not an obsession either. Suddenly he gets a flashback of his mom asking him to blind eye on these. She begged him to give up on SONHWA Group's investigation and asked him to listen to her just once. He comes back to the present. The chairman tells him that he knows that Pildu is doing his best, but this company is not where he works and he could do nothing about this since Lang Idlo is a presidential candidate. If things go south, the entire public prosecutor body will be after them, which will affect the upcoming election and put their lives at stake. The chairman receives a phone call from Mr. Kong. He starts sweet talking with him. Mr. Kong asked him to relay something to Pildu something. Right before he was about to leave the room, the chairman tells him that his mother is dead. Kong Pildu looked back at the chairman with fierce eyes. The ceremony hall was beautifully decorated with white flowers. In farthest end lied the picture of Pildu's mom. The other family members had not allowed visitors into the ceremony, which kept the ceremony completely empty until few men in black suits came over and started removing all the decorations since there weren't any visitors. One of them asks whether it was really alright to remove it right away since it hasn't even been 3 days. The man replies that the higher-ups don't care it. A man brings Pildu's mother's framed picture. The man ordered him to just throw it away and join others to remove the decorations. Once they were done and leaving, a man in black suit came in. He was none other than our Pildu. These men were not aware that he was her son and screamed at him since visitors we not allowed. Pildu shows a cold shoulder and tells them that he wanted to know how his mother died, but the higher-ups had already taken care of the situation. Therefore, he went to the hospital to check on the actual reports since they never lie. He spotted multiple stab marks on her mother's body, which means she was brutally unalived by a gang. He asks those men was all that even necessary? They made it sure that she couldn't even make a single sound while being brutally stabbed without any break. However, Pildu adds that she had swallowed something before she died. That way he realized who was really after her life. One of the man in black suit approached Pildu while warning him not to get in the way of their business. The man gets his finger broken by Pildu, and a kick straight to his chin. Seeing the man fall unconscious, another man rushed at him with a knife in hand, but Putin knocks him out right away and makes it clear that he is not going to do this with the law anymore. From now on, he is doing it his way, and anyone who gets in his way will be killed. Soon after, the Pildu's brothers get to know that he beat up everybody at the funeral. The second son, Kong Mu, says that it won't be good for the presidential election if things get out of hand. The third son agrees with what his brother had said and asks their father for a solution. Kong Il-do, their father, replies that it's sister different for his own child and ordered them to kill him. During the night time, 3 people were walking down a shady alley when they spot a person walk past them. They quickly remember that it was the psychopath, Kong Pildu, who stabbed a bully on their eye. Watching him go, a man stood still thinking of the past. During their school days, this man was bullied by the fat bully. They would frequently torture him if he didn't bring them the money they asked for. Even when the teacher spotted them, the fat bully made an excuse and got out of trouble and threatened him to bring him cash and called his blind mother a bitch. The bullied kid was in deep sorrow and was regretting his life. Then appeared Pildu, who asked him to move since he was throwing the trash out. The bullied kid lied down, almost taking his life when Pildu asked him to not do it and that he will take care of the bullies. Fast forward to the moment, Pildu stabbed the fat bully in the eye to avenge the poor bullied kid. The kid watched Pildu stab the bully, but he did not step up to clarify things to people because at that moment, he was very scared of him. The story is now back to the present. Pildu walks past a woman who had been waiting for his daughter to come back home. He proceeds to walk up the stairs and open the door to his house. He figures out something was off about the place and walks in the house. Suddenly, a man in black t-shirt charged at him with a knife from the darkness. However, Pildu manages to grab the knife before it pierced his stomach and beats the shit out of the man. He spots a man holding his knife at him. He asks him about the person who sent them to soakage him in a time like this. The guy replies that there's no point in learning who sent them since he will kill Pildu right away. Suddenly, we see the man fall on his knees covered up in blood with a blade stuck up his throat. Kong Pildu marches forward and finds a person sipping on alcohol on his dinner table. The man offered him alcohol and commented on him being a prosecutor even after effortlessly killing them. He thought that Pildu would be a bookworm, but now he has to ask for more money from the higher-ups. The doors to the washroom open. A young woman was lying down bruised all over. Pildu asked the man whether she was a part of the deal, to which the man replies that he brought her up from the floor down below. He wanted to frame Pildu for the possession of drugs and for exploiting young women from the neighboring houses. With a smirk on his face, the man says that this news will on the first page of the newspaper definitely. Pildu replies that nowadays that's not enough to make it to the front page. He would have to kill her parents as well to gain more attention. He points a terrifying glare at the man with the intent to kill. At the SUNHWA Group HQ, an assemblyman was sitting on the couch, looking the message sent by President Choi to take care of Pildu. He tells Kong Il-do that he himself will have to take care of the mess he has left. He sighs and regards Pildu as a bad son and questions his ignorance for not helping out his own father. The assemblyman tells Il-do that if this keeps getting wrong, he won't be able to avoid taking responsibility. Due to the continuous yapping of the assemblyman, Kong Il-do gets a bit furious and says that he'd have to dig up the entire Korea to bury his past. The assemblyman thought he was joking around and spoke up, but Il-do was dead serious about it. Il-do shouts that he doesn't spare anyone including his family if they try to get in his way. He also added that Pildu isn't someone who the assemblyman could take care of. If the assemblyman trued to barges in again, Il-do will have him buried as well. The assemblyman trembled in fear and picked up his phone to ask those people to back off. However, the person who he called was already lying dead, and the person who picked up the call was none other than Kong Pildu. Pildu asked the assemblyman to hand over the phone to Kong Il-do. He receives the phone and announces that it's him on the call now. Il-do further asked Pildu that after becoming a prosecutor, he could given him the prosecutor general position to him who others can't even dream of. He asked him whether he was doing all this because if the incident related to his mother. Pildu tells him that he doesn't understand what the death of her mother meant to him. He was only able to suppress himself till now was because of his mom, but now, even she has been taken away from him. The man wakes up, he has injuries all over his body and Pildu had detained with ropes. He suddenly smells gas flooding the entire room and the entire room catches fire and the man burns to death. Pildu watched the explosion from the rooftop and told his father that he will kill everybody who was involved in his mother's death without any exceptions. Not even his family. Kong Ildo laughs menacingly, telling Pildu that he has finally started to act more like his child and warns him about the path he has chosen. Due to the huge explosion, the ambulance came right away and the young woman who was beaten up by the man was on the stretcher on her way to the ambulance. Her mom thought she was injured seriously, but the nurse told her that the reporter had perfectly performed first aid on her. The police officers approaches them and wanted to ask her questions since it was a murder case. They asked her whether there were someone else along with the 3 people who attacked her. She replied that initially there were just 3 people but later another person came in. The police officers asked her about his apprentice, to which she replies that he was a young man with black hair, wearing a black suit and red eyes. She recalls her memory of him beating up the men brutally, without any hesitation. As Pildu walks away from the scene, he says that he doesn't care whatever the world thinks about him. He is a bad son. At a bar guarded by several guards, a man sat at a meeting table with several other men. He laughs crazy and says the Kong Pikdu has finally done it. This man was none other than the 3rd son of Kong Ildo, Kong Tigu. He discusses with his men that after the commotion created by his brother Pikdu, they have received a great opportunity. Tigu says that he won't planning on doing Inga anything before election, but things has changed. He wants to take down Pildu first to compensate for his dad's bad impression on him. He wants to him who's been pulling off the weight for his dad's company to make it this far. A man spoke up and asked him to take any flashy move at such incentive and asked him to wait at least for the election to end, but Tengu says that he can't keep doing all the dirty work for his father whole life. There's only one for then to move to the headquarters by using Pildu. Pildu received a footage of his mother walking in a dark alley, entering somewhere mysterious. He concludes that this footage was not old. He received this footage from an unknown person. Following the footage, he finds himself in the same dark alley her mother was last spotted at. He looks at the CCTV and confirms it. Moments later, few gang members bring unconscious men to the place. They called them goods, and if they get damaged, they won't get a fair price for them. Kong Pildu watches those people from a dark place observing their moves. In the building, the gang members surrounded a man who was on his knees begging to be spared. One of the gang members tells him that no one forced him to come here and shows him a paper explaining him that if he failed to pay interest, they will pay with the principal with their organs. The man had marks all over his body. He says if all of those organs are taken at once, he'll basically die. Their conversation was interrupted by the lounge barks of the dog strapped behind them. One of the gang members approached it and started beating it until he couldn't bark anymore. The gang member walks back to the man and points his bat at him. He pleads for his life, but the gang member ignores him and almost swings the bat. A gang member asks for his whereabouts, to which Pildu tells them to pay no attention to him and keep doing whatever they were doing. The man asks Pikdu to get out of there and asks for his cooperation. The man with the baseball bat in his hands asks Pildu about what he want after. Pildu replies that he's only there to check the CCTV. Upon listening his reply, the gang members couldn't stop laughing. The man sarcastically tells Pildu that they gotta show him the CCTV, but it won't be free. He points at his eyes and asks Pildu to give him one of his eye. Suddenly, a man tackles Pikdu from behind with a hammer in his hand. Pikdu evades the attack, grabs his face and drops a jawbreaker. The man fell unconscious. Pildu then grabs the chain from the floor and wraps it around his hand. Seeing this, all the gang members charge at him all at once. The victim took cover and watched Pildu kick everyone's ass. One by one, everyone fell on the ground until only 2 people were unhurt. Pildu approaches them and says that he only needs one of those 2. He asks them to speak. The man who was hesitant to tell him the detail was instantly shot with the bat. Seeing this, the other person was terrified and showed him the way to the CCTV room. It was a shady place. A man was sitting by the table doing something with earpods on. On further close-up, we see the man was actually painting an eyeball with a brush. The man stood up and turned back to see Pildu enter the room. Pildu says that he is in a hurry and directly asks for the copy of the CCTV footage. The man looked at Pildu and told him that it would be very sad if he didn't recognize who he was. He was none other than the fat bully, who Pildu stabbed on the eye. The man lets out a maniac smile and tells him that he made him into a one-eyed handicapped. The scene shifts to a past event where two men are in the middle of a transaction. As the buyer inspects the contents of the van, he notices that the amount of goods far exceeds what was requested. Another man tells him to ignore it, explaining that there had been an incident at the site. He mentions the supplier, someone affiliated with the Gangnam gang, noting that the supplier's methods are unusual. He explains how the supplier initially barged in demanding an eye, adding that his way of operating is very different from other suppliers. The buyer nods, acknowledging that he has heard rumors about this supplier and his bizarre obsession with eyeballs. Pointing toward the bodies in the van, the other man remarks that these individuals had tried to oppose the supplier's methods and paid the ultimate price. He explains that the supplier not only killed them but also gouged out their eyeballs without using anesthesia. The aftermath left a mess that required 3 days to clean up. The buyer glances at the lifeless bodies and shakes his head, describing the supplier as a lunatic. He questions how long this madness will continue. The other man reveals that the supplier plans to end this soon. He explains that the supplier is confident the man who took one of his eyes back in high school, Kong Pildu, will eventually come looking for him. As if on cue, the scene shifts to the supplier smirking as Kong Pildu enters the room. The supplier greets Pildu with a sinister tone, claiming that he has been waiting for this moment for a long time. Kong Pildu, dismissing his taunts, demands the CCTV footage he came to retrieve. The supplier retaliates with cutting remarks, calling Pildu a selfish brute who will stop at nothing to get what he wants, earning himself the nickname Kong Pildu, the psychopath. Ignoring the provocations, Pildu coldly orders him to shut up and stop pretending to know him. Infuriated, the man shouts, asking if Pildu truly doesn't recognize him after ruining his life by blinding one of his eyes back in high school. Pildu denies any memory of the event, which only fuels the supplier's rage. Armed with a sharp, sinister tool designed for extracting eyeballs, the man lunges at Pildu in a frenzy. Pildu skillfully dodges the attacks, though one swipe leaves a shallow cut on his cheek. The supplier mocks him, claiming the tool is so sharp that its cuts are imperceptible. Pildu, undeterred, shrugs off his jacket and rolls up his sleeves, a gesture that further enrages his opponent. The supplier charges again, managing to drive the tool into Pildu's shoulder. Pildu, now bleeding, headbutts the man to loosen his grip and throws him across the room. Smirking, he taunts the supplier, claiming he finally remembers who he is from their school days. Enraged but fatigued, the supplier rises and attacks again, but Pildu counters with a series of precise blows, leaving the man staggering. Dropping the tool, the supplier grows weaker, while Pildu seizes the opportunity to approach the monitor he came for. Scrolling through the data, Pildu mutters that he will deal with the man later, as the footage takes priority. His expression darkens as he watches a recording of his mother begging the supplier for something. Turning to the man, Pildu demands an explanation for why his mother was groveling before him. In response, the supplier cuts all the power in the room. Darkness envelopes them, and the man dons night vision goggles to gain the upper hand. Suddenly, a sharp tool flies through the air, striking Pildu's shoulder once again. Grimacing in pain, Pildu pulls out the weapon and braces himself for another attack. However, the supplier, savoring the moment, begins to divulge a secret about Pildu's mother. He claims she had come to him seeking goods and offered to pay any amount he desired. Producing a list, Pildu's mother had pleaded with the supplier to acquire the items for her. Although she offered a generous sum, the supplier had demanded something far more personal in return. The supplier grabs more tools and continues revealing the shocking details of Pildu's mother's request. He explains that she wanted a middle-aged woman with pale skin, long straight hair, and red eyes. Pildu, stunned, tries to process what he's hearing. Before he can react, the supplier throws a bunch of sharp tools at him, forcing Pildu to raise his arms to protect his face and chest. Laughing at Pildu's confusion, the supplier adds something even more disturbing. He says that Pildu's mother didn't just want someone who looked like that. She specifically asked for a dead woman. She wanted a corpse that could take her place instead. Hearing this, Pildu's frustration grows as he struggles to understand why his mother would make such a strange and desperate request. As the supplier keeps attacking Pildu, he mocks him, saying his confidence seems to have vanished after learning about his mother's request. With Pildu losing a lot of blood, the supplier taunts him to beg for mercy, suggesting it's not too late to save his life. When Pildu remains silent, the supplier escalates his provocation, claiming that Pildu's mother was very good at begging for mercy. He then reveals that he had changed his demand from money to Pildu's eyes because they looked so much like his mother's. Laughing maniacally, the supplier recounts how he told Pildu's mother he'd only find the body she wanted if she agreed to give up her son's eyes in return. Hearing this, Pildu's anger flares, but before he can act, the supplier lands another attack, worsening Pildu's injuries. Approaching Pildu, the supplier admits that Pildu's mother didn't agree to the deal and reveals that another man intervened. This man struck a deal with the supplier, offering Pildu's mother in exchange for the chance to meet Pildu. The supplier, eager for revenge, accepted the offer and had been waiting for this moment ever since. Picking up a pickaxe, the supplier closes in on Pildu, assuming he's too weak to resist. When Pildu lowers his hands and stands still, the supplier smirks, thinking Pildu has given up. He mocks Pildu for surrendering and promises to reunite him with his mother in hell. As the supplier rushes toward him, Pildu suddenly turns and readies himself. The supplier hesitates briefly, doubting Pildu's ability to counter given his weakened state. But Pildu outsmarts him, smashing the supplier's goggles and leaving him completely blind. Panicked, the supplier swings wildly, shouting for Pildu to show himself. He boasts that Pildu has no advantage in the situation. Calmly, Pildu asks if the supplier truly can't see him, which confuses the man. When the supplier insists the room is pitch dark, Pildu casually reveals that the lights are on. The supplier freezes in shock as Pildu adds that the blades of his tools are indeed sharp. Sharp enough that the supplier didn't even feel his eyes being cut. Horrified, the supplier touches his face and realizes that Pildu is telling the truth. Overwhelmed with regret, he collapses to the floor, crying uncontrollably. Desperate, he grabs Pildu's shirt and tries to stand, claiming he'll be able to see again if he takes Pildu's eyes and implants them. As he reaches for Pildu's face, brushing his cheek near his eyes, Pildu's anger boils over. He slaps the supplier hard across the face, sending him sprawling to the ground. The supplier cries out in pain, accusing Pildu of taking advantage of his blindness. As he lies defeated and broken, sitting near the supplier, Kong Pildu instructs him to listen carefully, though he is certain the man cannot hear properly after the powerful slap that likely ruptured his eardrum. As the supplier checks his ear and asks Pildu to speak louder, Pildu's anger flares. He grabs the supplier by his hair, pulling him close, and demands to know the identity of the person who came asking about his mother. The supplier mumbles incoherently, but Pildu's patience runs thin as he glares at him. Moments later, Kong Taegsu and his gang arrive at the scene. By this time, however, Pildu has already uncovered the truth from the CCTV footage and fled the area. Upon entering the building, Kong Taegsu heads straight to the supplier's room. He finds the man lying in a pool of blood, barely clinging to life. Observing the supplier's weak muttering, Taegsu leans closer, trying to decipher his words but fails to understand him. Without hesitation, Taegsu pulls out a knife, his expression cold. He mockingly comments that the supplier should have chosen better allies and, with a swift motion, slices his neck, ending his life. As Taegsu cleans his knife, a gang member informs him that Pildu might still be nearby, as he was fighting the supplier. The gang member offers to send people after Pildu, But Tiegu dismisses the idea, telling him to stay calm. Turning his attention to the CCTV camera, Tiegu studies it for a moment. He concludes that Pildu has likely already seen who was with his mother on that night. Smirking, Tiegu confidently remarks that Pildu will come to them on his own. After all, he has always been like that since childhood, predictable and determined to settle things his way. A few months ago, at the Xianhua Group headquarters, Kang Tigu walked into the building. Confronting the guards at the door, he told them to stop frowning, commenting that it always felt like he was walking into a funeral. One of the guards stopped him, stating that he could not enter the building. Tigu asked if he looked like a pushover because of a joke. The other guards explained that they had received orders allowing entry only to designated members. Even when Tigu introduced himself as the third son of the Xianhua Group, they denied him entry. Brandishing a knife, he asked if they had forgotten his personality and shouted for the person blocking him to come out. Suddenly, Kang Mu, the second son of the Xianhua Group, approached and claimed responsibility. He remarked that Tigu hadn't discarded his old habits and questioned his positivity while brandishing a knife when things didn't go his way. Mu told Tigu he should be ashamed and that he should dance with those knives at his job, not at the head office. Tigu asserted that he was the president on the board of members. Kang Mu retorted that Tigu was merely the president of a subcontractor and that not all presidents were the same. He added that Taigu's wild behavior was why the company was in a mess. Walking in, Mu instructed the guards to do their job properly, noting that the company's image could be tarnished if they couldn't control such individuals. Tigu provoked Kang Mu, calling him a bastard who got his position only because he was born a minute earlier. With an angry face, Kang Mu asked if Tigu had lost his fear and prepared to fight him. He invited Tigu to a brawl to determine who was on top. Tigu, eager for the challenge, replied that it was exactly what he wanted to hear. As they were about to clash, a loud voice commanded them to stop. It was Kang Cha-wook, the first in line of the Xianhua Group. He walked past them, followed by Kang Mu. Wook advised Tigu to stay unnoticed and perform his duties if he wanted to remain part of the group, rather than striving for their brothers' positions. Tigu felt anger but controlled himself and responded that he understood. Internally, he seethed, thinking they wanted him to do their dirty work for the rest of his life. Determined to prove his worth, he resolved that he could no longer stay in their shadow. In a bar, documents containing details about Xianhua's illegal businesses are given to Kang Tigu. While examining the documents, Tigu asks his associate if he is sure about this since his brother did a lot of dirty work. His associate confirms that he obtained the information from popular Chinese hackers, so he trusts it. His associate then checks with his boss, Tigu, to ensure that he will be safe, as the situation could get worse for him if the documents were to be leaked. After getting confirmation, Tigu instructs his associate and others to accompany him to the head office. He explains that the documents need to be delivered to Kang Pildu. When questioned about his decision, Tigu clarifies that other prosecutors may have aligned with the upcoming president. He believes Pildu will investigate the matter, as Pildu is known for not caring about his family and will take action. Tigu plans to capture Xianhua after Pildu initiates his actions. In the present day, Pildu sits on the side of the bed, consumed by thoughts of his recent fight with his former classmate and the hurtful comments he made about his mom. As he picks up his phone to make a call, he is deep in thought about the situation. Meanwhile, Kang Mu walks out of the building towards his car and suddenly assaults the driver who is asleep at the wheel. As onlookers witness the scene, an individual attempts to intervene, but Kang Mu strikes this person for trying to stop him. He asserts that the issue is related to the company and he is not his former high school friend now, and threatens Chung-sun, warning that if he doesn't work harder, there will be serious consequences for him and his underlings. As he receives a phone call and hears no voice on the other end, he responds rudely, demanding that the caller speak up and questioning their identity. He presumes that it's his younger brother, Kang Pildu, on the line. Pildu, while recollecting the person in the CCTV footage, realizes that it's none other than Kang Mu. Kang Mu guesses that Kang Pildu is blaming his mother's death on him. He says that even if he did, Pildu cannot manage to kill him, and asks him if he plans to take on the entirety of Xianhua alone. He ends the call by challenging Pildu to find him if he is confident. In the gym, the chains of the punching bag are moving vigorously. Kong Mu is punching the bag so hard that the chains are broken, and blood is seen on the bag. Considering it an easy workout, he orders to get rid of the person and walks towards Chung-sun asking about his assigned tasks. Chung-sun replied that they were searching everywhere for it. Kong Mu says that the brothers are trying to take up too much of the space he left for them. He expected Tigu's behavior but didn't expect Pildu to be involved too. While the guards are moving the bodies, he orders them to do it quickly since they cannot interfere with his father's election. He also asks Chung-sun to keep an eye on Tigu and his surroundings as he is concerned about his silence. Chung-sun thinks it would be risky if Tigu found out about the mole. Kong Mu advises him to keep his distance and observe, emphasizing that he must tell him everything. He is tired of hearing Chung-sun's apologies and asks him to look at his shoes, which have a drop of blood on them. He wanted to test his skill after a long time, provoking him to do it. He agrees to do it right away and proceeds to lick his shoes to clean them. Kong Mu looks down on him and asks him to do better next time. At dawn, Chung-sun emerges from the house, yawning because it's time for his shift. Kong Pildu arrives near the house in his car and notices that Chung-sun, the team leader, is always with Kong Mu. Pildu concludes that to see his brother, he must first deal with Chung-sun, knowing that it won't be easy. After a while, Pildu walks towards Chung-sun with a hammer. Chung-sun responds to a radio message, saying he hasn't seen anything and instructs everyone to go home. Upon seeing Chung-sun's unsurprised face, Pildu asks if this type of situation occurs to him frequently. Chung-sun replies that he's quite surprised since Pildu is the first person to come there alone. Chung-sun then stands up and asks Pildu to go home for the day, mentioning that tomorrow is payday and he wants to avoid any trouble. He then clenches his fist, preparing to strike Pildu, who is running towards him, claiming that being a salaryman is difficult. Chung-sun swiftly avoids a swing of the hammer and delivers an uppercut to Pildu. He tells Pildu that he didn't expect him to show up. Pildu responds by saying that he is the same as before, a former MMA second-place champion. Chung-sun claims that he has changed a lot and asks if Pildu wants to fight with his brother. He further suggests that Pildu should ask for his brother's forgiveness, as nothing good will come from their fight. Pildu replies that it is a family matter and has nothing to do with Chung-sun. Chung-sun asks him not to be cold and tries to let him know about his position, saying that he also knows him. Pildu sprints towards him, saying that he is not here for idle talk and tells Chung-sun to move out of his way. Chung-sun thinks that Pildu talks the same way as his brother, which makes him angry. He swiftly hits Pildu's elbow, causing him to drop the hammer. Chung-sun then tries to hit him with a punch, but Pildu evades it and counters. Chung-sun blocks Pildu's attack and quickly lands a punch on his face, knocking him down and causing him to bleed. Chung-sun questions Pildu's power, wondering if he wants to go against his brother and the entire Xianhua. He asks Pildu to come with him and not to be overconfident. Kong Mu woke up from his bed and felt curious about someone's arrival. Meanwhile, Chung-sun knocked Pildu out but made it clear it was nothing personal and he was just acting out of necessity. When he tried to drag Pildu, Pildu unexpectedly stood up, surprising Chung-sun. Chung-sun thought about hitting him again, as he believed Pildu was as stubborn as his brother. However, Pildu managed to push him against the wall with force. Chung-sun hit Pildu's back with his elbow, causing him to stumble. Even then, Pildu pushed Chung-sun against the wall even harder. Chung-sun realized that Pildu was trying to get closer, knowing he was at a disadvantage in close combat. Then, Pildu pretended to throw a punch, tricking Chung-sun, which allowed him to land a good punch. Kong Pildu is on top of Chung-sun, trying to choke him. Chung-sun, fueled by anger at Pildu being Kong Mu's younger brother, retaliates swiftly. He drives his knee into Pildu's back, sending him tumbling to the ground. Pildu quickly recovers and charges back at Chung-sun. Meanwhile, Chung-sun remembers Kong Mu's vague instructions to bring Pildu back, unsure of the condition required. Pildu swings a punch at Chung-sun, who deftly dodges and then targets Pildu's leg with a move he's seen in MMA fights. Chung-sun wraps himself around Pildu's leg, applying pressure that causes intense pain. Chung-sun senses the danger of a broken leg and considers surrendering. But Pildu manages to twist the hold, gripping Chung-sun's leg with determination. Chung-sun realizes Pildu's intent to cause harm from the beginning and refuses to give in. With a sharp crack, Pildu breaks Chung-sun's leg and calmly walks away towards the house. While enduring the pain of his leg, Chung-sun grimly asserts that Kong-mu doesn't go easy on him simply because he's his little brother, hinting that their next clash won't follow previous patterns that they had. He dismisses any of his assumptions from everyone's perspective that Chung-sun's care for him revolves around money and other motives. Chung-sun denies them and reveals his lifelong inability to defeat Kong-mu, admitting he never even had any illusions of his victory. Chung-sun elaborates on Kong-mu's ruthless tactics, explaining that Kong-mu's fights does not tend only to victories. They are about forcing his opponents to kneel or face brutal consequences, including death if they resist. He cautions Pildu to think of his choices wisely, stressing Kong-mu's unwillingness to entertain losing battles. Chung-sun bluntly threatens Pildu that entering that door means certain his demise, claiming that his own desire for a running away to survive. Claiming that he has nowhere left to hide, Pildu presses the house's doorbell, alerting Kong-mu inside. The door swings open to reveal Kong-pildu, his younger brother, bearing a face bruised by their violent encounter. Kong-pildu tries to throw a punch when the door opens, but stops short when he sees his sister-in-law. Chung-sun expects Pildu to leave after greeting his sister-in-law, but instead, Pildu punches him. Pildu asks where Kong-mu is, ready to hear it even if it means he might die. Pildu keeps hurting Chung-sun by stepping on his broken leg, demanding he tell him or face death. Chung-sun says Kong-mu is one of the presidents at Cianhua Group. His last advice to Pildu is to give up. Pildu sarcastically agrees and gives Chung-sun another choice. Either tell him where Kong-mu is and possibly die, or refuse and face death right there. Kong-mu emerges from his mansion, visibly annoyed from being disturbed during his sleep, and confronts the men who were caught by his guards, questioning how they knew his location, which was supposed to be confidential. One of them claims he was waiting in his car for a friend. Kong-mu, looking at surveillance photos in his camera of him with another woman, scoffs at the excuse and asks if this man is the supposed friend. He disregards their explanations, striking the man's face with the camera, causing a gush of blood. A guard presents an ID card showing the man is from the Cianhua Group's business support department, under Kong-mu's elder brother. Kong-mu reflects on how his brother still distrusts him despite him fulfilling and complying with all of his demands. When the guard suggests handling the situation quietly, Kong-mu insists they send the man back. The puzzled guard questions if they should investigate why he sneaked in. Kong-mu strikes him for not following orders, after which they release the men. Kong-mu interrogates team leader Choi, lighting a cigarette, about the security breach. The guard explains he was protecting the mansion. Kong-mu instructs him to make a call and prepare a fighter to help him release stress before an upcoming event with his brother. Meanwhile, at Kong-mu's house, Chung-sun lights his cigarette and insists he's clueless about the situation and that he is disliking to stay in one place for long in the recent times. With Mu increasing his bodyguard count, who were all well respected in the industry, Chung-sun argues with Pildu that going alone is like signing up for suicide. Pildu shrugs it off, but Chung-sun urges him to reconsider, citing Mu's sharp instincts and the potential consequences if things go in the other direction. After finishing his cigarette, Chung-sun mentions a place Mu frequents alone and decides to contact Pildu, asking him to wait until then since he doesn't know when he will go. Pildu, impatient, retorts that waiting wasn't part of his plan. Chung-sun picks up his ringing phone and informs someone he'll be coming, and tells them that he will prepare it soon, giving a meaningful glance to Pildu. Pildu arrives at an abandoned factory in his car. He confronts the driver and secretary before entering the factory. He recalls Chung-sun's words that there are many factories that the Cianhua Group owns, the number being close to 145. He claims that the outside world knows what happens inside. Kong-mu knows about this very well and says, His driver and secretary will be outside. Chung-sun says that he'll get to know when he reaches the third storage room. When Pildu asks what he does, he says it is like his hobby which only he can enjoy. In a factory where no one watches, he plays a game while ignoring all rules. Pildu walks to the room and sees Kong Mu. Mu starts to speak while facing the money on the table, that he can take as much money as he can if he defeats him. Pildu questions if he can take something he wants. Pildu days he doesn't need money and wants to know who killed his mother. Realizing the person is his little brother, Kong Mu says there isn't anyone he could trust in this world. Pildu asserts he never had a problem with that since he never trusted anyone to begin with, especially his family. Mu says the reason he was abandoned by his family is his attitude, which is hated by everyone. Pildu corrects him saying that he was the one who had abandoned his family. Mu says he wasn't surprised at all when he said he wanted to live away from his family. Mu says that it is natural for him, and throws a pile of money into the air while trying to sneak a punch in the middle of the flying money, which Pildu evades easily. Kong Mu uses this to clarify that he is not blinded by money, which is the other reason he does not fit in not just in his family but also in Xianhua. Mu sprints forward and delivers a punch, which is blocked by Pildu. Mu goes for a kick right at his chin and follows it up with a direct kick to his face, knocking him back and falling on the ground. Mu asserts that he didn't come here to joke around with him and asks him to get serious. Pildu stands up and his talkative nature when compared to his action till now. Mu charges towards Pildu and punches him, quickly landing another kick on him, making him vulnerable. Just as Kong Mu is trying to hit him again, he evades it swiftly. Kong Mu claims that he's lucky since he could have been on the ground if it landed. Pildu wipes off the blood from his nose. He offers to help him answer his question directly from his dead mother if he is going to waste his time. Pildu finds a screwdriver while responding to him and asks when he plans to start trying. Kong Mu gets angrier for taking until the end. Meanwhile, outside the factory, the people who were caught by Kong Mu were waiting in the car and talking to Kong Tigu over the phone. He says no one has made it out yet and confirms Pildu's entry into the factory. He affirms that everything is going as per his plan and affirms Kong Mu that they think everything is laid out by his big brother. He questions if he wants him to watch over them, to which Tigu advises them to leave the place and not to get caught since the situation might get tricky. He commands them to go into hiding for some days, thinking of it as a vacation. Lighting a cigarette, Tigu thinks that the power of the universe is coming towards him. He thinks about how dumb Pildu is in going towards that factory at that time all alone. The guard beside Tigu asks him if it will be game over if the second eldest son catches him while they stay right there. When Tigu questions the person, he clarifies by taking Pildu's name. He claims that he is calling Pildu's name like a friend of his, so he apologizes. Knowing about Kong Mu, he recalls the incident at the warehouse where Kong Mu fought against the gangsters of Gangbuk all by himself. Finishing his sixth cigarette, Tigu claims to know about his craziness for fighting but acknowledges Pildu is the kind of person who will do anything to acquire what he desires and comments on him being a psycho. He assures that Pildu will certainly bring trouble. In the factory, Pildu tries to attack with a screwdriver, when Kong Mu is near to him while delivering his punch. As Pildu is about to strike him with a screwdriver to his head, Kong Mu stops him with his hand and says he expected this since he knows him too well. He follows up with a kick, sending Pildu backwards. He thought only Tigu would resort to using such kind of tools while catching the screwdriver. He confirms that Pildu is as dirty as Tigu and asks Pildu if he is some kind of a thug. Kong Mu asks if that was the reason Pildu sent away his mother in that manner. When Pildu questions the reason, his mother reaches out to him for help. He says a person like him should have stayed at home, but complaining will not change anything. Kong Mu sprints towards him while commanding him to focus since he has no time to spare when Pildu is looking at his surroundings. Pildu throws some sand onto his face, making it difficult to see. Pildu starts to land a barrage of punches on Kong Mu, which he blocks with his hands. Kong Mu asks if he wants to continue since he can take more hits, after recovering his vision. Pildu desperately tries to land a punch on Kong Mu. Kong Mu quickly evades his punch by a small gap and lands his punch on Pildu's face, knocking him back again. Kong Mu offers him to forget this matter and about his mother's death and to work for his company. He claims he will forget about something like this if he gets his hands on some money. He asks Pildu to soften up so that they can assign him to work to do. Pildu replies he doesn't like getting tired of dirty work and claims to have seen the accounting papers, which he concluded that they have been getting lazy in dumping the disposable waste due to a shortage of funds, while he turns a valve near to him. He says it is illegal to pile it in a factory and dump it on a rainy day. He continues to act like a prosecutor and says that under the Water Control Act, he could face up to 7 years in prison or a fine of up to 70 million won. Kong Mu claims that he is acting like a nerd and to get his hands off that since it's expensive. He turns the valve faster and says that the simplified version of his explanation would be to put the trash in the trash bin. The readings of the pressure gauges go up in value and smoke starts to leak from the pipes which are around them. Kong Mu responds in fear that the smoke is toxic and Pildu advances towards him, delivering a hard punch. They begin to exchange blows in the smoke-filled area. Both of them try harder to knock down the other person. After a series of traded blows, when Mu punches him, Pildu grabs him by his shoulder and punches his face directly, resulting in both of them standing toe-to-toe. While gasping for air, both of them try to leave their final punch and they get knocked down by each other. When Kong Mu tries to get up, he sees Pildu recovering from the fall and sprinting towards him with that screwdriver. He manages to get on top of Kong Mu and proceeds to hurt him using the screwdriver, which Kong Mu tries desperately to stop him. When he pierced his chest, Kong Mu screamed at him to stop hurting him. Pildu screams at him asking for the name of who has killed his mother. After a while, the door opens. Pildu comes out of the room with blood on his hands and bruises on his face. Pildu exits the building, struggling with pain from the fight. Kong Mu also follows him after some time and curses him, claiming that he won't be left alone after leaving him in this condition. After a while, Kong Mu walks out with his bloodied hands, and a figure in the car at a distance watches him. Kong Mu calls his guards on the phone and commands them to come immediately to his location, and also to gather everyone from the headquarters, commanding them to bring Kong Pildu to him, asking team leader Choi Chung-sun. When asked about the team leader, he shouts at them since Chung-sun is the one who told Pildu. Suddenly a person strikes Kong Mu from the rear with a knife. It is none other than Tigu, who covers his mouth and calls Pildu an idiot since he couldn't take care of him, making him clean up his mess. When Kong Mu struggles to talk, Tigu claims that he is still looking down on him, and he recites his plan that he has to die in Pildu's hands so that it goes according to his plan. When the secretary and driver come running, Tigu pierces him deeper into his wound again and hides the knife behind. When the guards question Tigu about his presence, he quickly shouts at them and says that neither of them saw Pildu who arrived here. He presses the knife wound on Mu and shouts at them for being close to him when his brother is dying. Continuing his act to save his brother, he curses Pildu and shouts at them for not calling an ambulance right away, threatening their lives if his brother doesn't get to live. Kong Mun, with a low voice, says no matter his struggle, he can never have the Xianhua group. He claims to have told everything to Pildu. Making a furious face, he shouts at them to help bring the ambulance here. He continues to act like a savior until they are out of sight. He asks him to worry about his life, not about him, and starts to choke him to death. He says he will follow up on his death with Pildu in no time. Meanwhile, in the house, Kong Cha-wook pours some medicinal wine into the cup of his father Kong Il-do, which is his favorite, and claims it took some time to prepare it for him. His father acknowledges that it is different by looking at its color and is unsure about its taste since he has only had cheap liquor since he entered the political scene. He claims he must repay Cha-wook for getting such precious liquor and questions him. Cha-wook responds he just wants to have a drink with his father. His father tells him to ask for his help like a man, and he will certainly help if it means helping his son. Cha-wook opens up that there has been noise in the management team, and they were trying to find fault with him for not having proper inner control. He asks him to attend the next general shareholders meeting and settle things. Just when he tries to acknowledge himself, his secretary interferes them by barging into the room unannounced and whispers something in the ears of Kong Il-do. He is followed by another person who informs something to Kong Cha-wook. His father lights up a cigarette and asks him to have this drink the next time since everyone is causing a fuss when the presidential election is near. Ildo claims everyone is making a fool of themselves instead of being helpful. Kong Cha-wook apologizes for not taking care of them beforehand. His father puts out the cigarette in the drink cup and stands up to leave. He asks his secretary not to leak this news to the public and advises Cha-wook to take care of his little siblings before handling a company. This angers Cha-wook. His father also advises him to get something the other person desires the most at that moment if he wants something desperate from someone instead of some liquor. After Kong Ildo leaves, Cha-wook drinks a cup of wine with the cigarette butt. He orders his men at the back to bring him what he desires at the moment. The doctors come out of the operation theater and inform the guards asking Tigu, who is present there, that the operation was a success and Kong Mu is saved. Tigu gets furious after listening to this. He brings a get well soon present and talks to Chung-sun to be cheerful since this is not a funeral. When he asks about his presence, Tigu asks him about his leg. He lies to him saying that he fell down some stairs. He gives him the gift basket saying it is expensive and it's a waste to give it to Kong Mu. He walks into the room and says it must be great to be a president since he was admitted to a 4-person hospital room when he got stabbed, and wondering if this room is a hotel or a hospital. Tigu walks up to him and tells him to say something, and not to lie down. He wonders if he is listening to him or putting down a show just to hinder him. He feels like killing him and says it was a joke since his boys are around and he cannot do anything. He claims to visit him out of curiosity since he cannot understand why Pildu has left him alive, no matter how much he thinks about it. When he asks about their discussion back then, his heart rate rises, suddenly causing the doctors to arrive and check his condition. Tigu leaves the room, thinking that he doesn't want to talk about it. He thinks of finding it out himself from Pildu. He walks to his car and enters it, only to be surprised by seeing the first elder brother Cha-wook in his car. Tigu questions his presence here and says that he could have called him if he wanted to meet him. Cha-wook wanted to do that, but Tigu seemed busy since he was always outside, claiming that the more desperate one should be on the move. Looking at the doctor's property reports in his hands, her claims that Kong Mu won't be the same when he wakes up. Tigu agrees with him since he has lost much blood and he'd be at his funeral if he didn't find him. Tightening the paper, he claims that the person wanted to kill him, seeing as he assumed right for his lungs. He wonders that the person must be adept with knives since it was a single precise strike. Tigu bites his nail with fear. Cha-wook claims Pildu never uses such tactics since he knows him very well, and this type of method is used by Tigu since he was the one who taught him to use knives. Tigu trembled with fear when Wook tore those papers and said the doctors were not doing their jobs properly, and they should have taken him out since the company would be in trouble if they left him in that state. He asks Tigu to come to the headquarters tomorrow since it's bad to leave Kong Mu's spot empty for long. While he exits the car, Cha-wook warns Tigu not to do anything stupid behind his back. Tigu thought his heart was going to explode due to the tension. He tries to calm down since there isn't any evidence to prove that he was the one who did it. He thinks Cha-wook is just messing with him and feels glad that he is finally in the headquarters. He picks up his ringing phone and says that he is called at the right moment, and orders him to pack his stuff at his office since they are moving to the headquarters tomorrow. Suddenly a person shouts calling him and saying that Kong Pildu has come to his office and swept the whole office in search of something. He was about to say more. Pildu knocks him down. Pildu wonders why it was so hard to see him, and it makes sense since he is finally going to the headquarters. While stamping the guard's face, he says that his childhood dream had come true and wanted to send him a present to congratulate him. He looks at his phone to see a video of him stabbing Kong Mu from the rear and reacts violently to it. Setting his reaction, Pildu jokes he is glad that he likes it. He gives him 2 offers, either to bring that present to the headquarters or if he wants to come and take it from him.